Hey everyone, Josh Taylor here. How is it going? So of course I am here once again with the great Sam Havel. How's it going?
It's going. How are you?
I'm good. So today we are getting into mental health, especially in the pet industry, right?
Yes. It's something that we don't talk about enough. It can really actually cripple people more than you realize. So we're going to dive in a little bit on the vet side, a little bit on the caretaker side, on the dog training side, and just kind of give a little bit more insights into what people are going through.
Okay. Well, I do know that veterinarians, for lack of a better word, they kind of get a shit end of the stick when it comes to the whole mental health, right? I noticed that on Facebook, they'll have like a little quotation or something for a lot of the veterinarians will put on at a specific time, like awareness. I forget the abbreviation.
Not one more vet, NOMV.
That's
one
it.
more vet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, if we dive into that, starting with Not One More Vet, which was a website or more like a collective action created back in 2014 following the suicide of Dr. Sophia Yin. Friends of Sophia Yin started this Not One More Vet site, giving advice, giving peer support, giving awareness, education, so that the team across the world can actually be supported, because vets deal with a lot of things that general people don't deal with. So if we look into a little bit of statistics, we've got, over the span of 35 years, 400 veterinarians dying by suicide. Additionally, apparently 70% of veterinarians have had a colleague or a peer die by suicide, and 60% have had diagnosed depression so severe that it requires professional help. Like, this kind of stuff is intense.
Yeah.
This is like almost parallel to people who deal with life insurance, like who are getting into the stress of how insurances affect people. I think one of the other really high rates of suicide is people who deal with insurance, who work in insurance.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. Anyways, part of the reasons why vets are so affected by mental health is, they've come out of school, they have a mountain of debt to pay off, their salaries don't necessarily reflect that, and they deal with the day-to-day stressors, not only dealing with animals that are, let's say, fearful, difficult, but they're also dealing with pet parents that are fearful and difficult, or people that just don't have enough funds. We all know the rates at the vets have gone up. So there's a disconnect. When we all go in to the vet, yes, we're there for our animals, but sometimes we literally cannot complete the procedure that would be recommended for our animal. And so while we feel like we're letting our animal down, so does the vet. And that vet sees how many animals a day? So the factor is up by how many more animals a day.
Yeah, I guess it's a little naive for me to think that, as you know, we both know quite a few veterinarians, but when I talk to them, or when stuff like that comes up, a dog had to be put down or whatever the case is, I almost find that they would probably be numb to it to a degree, right? Like, where it's much easier for them to talk about it compared to like someone who doesn't talk about it, I guess.
Doesn't talk about it.
But again, like I said, I think it's quite naive for me to, especially hearing like those statistics, right? Because it's not a lie, those are the statistics, right? So it clearly means that you can't tell me that like out of that 70% of someone knowing, a veterinarian knowing another veterinarian, that you can't tell me that none of them were quote unquote numb to putting a dog down. They probably all were, in the way I'm talking about it.
Yeah. So, there's dissociation, right? So you can still go through traumatic experiences, disassociate, but that's not a real way of actually handling the mental heaviness, the mental weight of the trauma that you're going through.
Right.
And so we might be seeing the vets literally dissociate when you look at them and you ask them how much is that test, and there's that like coldness in their eyes. It is not because they're afraid to tell you the price, although if you yell at them for the price, that may have conditioned them to make you afraid to tell you the price.
Yeah.
However, they're just like, oh yeah, okay, we're going down this road again. And so they might be dissociating from that moment in time, but it's not because they're not feeling something. It's because they have to learn somehow not to feel it while you're in that session. But let me tell you, the amount of animals that I've had to put down, both personally and in a professional capacity, the vets and vet techs are not emotionless in those situations. In fact, they've cried often with me and my pets and my husband. We're all there sitting and feeling it. So they have to deal with this on a personal level as well as on a professional level. And a reminder, where other than the veterinarian profession, up until recently, do you deal with euthanasia? It's not a wide practice, except for it's actually completely part of the practice in the veterinary practice. That's intense.
Yeah, that is intense.
Yeah.
That is intense. It probably happens every day,
Yeah.
right? I can't see how it wouldn't, right?
Yeah. That's it.
You were saying before, too, I think, that a couple of times you've, of course, unfortunately had to put
I have.
a loved one down, right? And you were saying that sometimes, like, the whole place, like, all of them are crying or
Yep.
just as upset as you.
Yep.
I'm sure, yeah, in a lot of ways, it affects everyone.
It affects. And like, there's those days where you'll walk into your vet and that little candle is lit on the reception desk with a sign saying someone is saying goodbye to their loved one. And so not only are the vet and the vet tech in the room with that family, but also the rest of the staff knows it's going on too. It lays like a somber like cloud over everything, and it's a respectful somber cloud, yes, but it doesn't make a big difference when you're going home. You're like, oh crap, everybody at the clinic went through that today. Like, that's just, it's something that follows you around like a little black cloud, that tough time that you have to deal with at work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on a professional note, I've had to put down, I'm going to say probably half a dozen of client animals while they were away. We were pet sitting their cats, and either they had a chronic condition that worsened or an acute condition that snuck up out of nowhere. But the reality is, while the owners are away, we are in charge of doing what the owners would like us to do. So it could be a veterinary visit. It could be leaving them at an emergency clinic overnight and letting the emergency clinic handle it. But there have been cases where it just literally ends in me or one of my staff cuddling the cat until the euthanasia process is over. And we're bawling over this cat because there is an emotional attachment that we build throughout our pet sitting visits. We try to be the most caring, the most empathetic, the best service that you can hire, and it doesn't come without emotional costs. The emotional costs of a caregiver, human caregiver, pet caregiver, they're high. Unless you are a psychopath that doesn't have emotions, which if you are, you're probably not working in the animal industry. But it comes attached with these burdens.
Yeah. Yeah. Having said that, if we go into our little, area of what we do, I was just looking up a little bit of stats here. Not necessarily stats, but apparently there's like this big thing going on where a lot of comments of like, why are so many dog trainers suffering from burnout? There's even Victoria Stilwell. There's even like an ebook or something from her called How to Avoid Compassion Fatigue in Dog Training.
Yeah.
And to go along with this, I've done it where, like, especially what you do, which is like, I've had a client where like they go somewhere and I'm taking care of their dog. It's stressful, man.
Tell me a little bit more.
Well, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
I mean, you're taking care of someone's child.
Yep.
Right? compared to me going to so-and-so's house and being like, okay,
On for
we're
an
doing
hour.
this, we're on for an hour, you have to almost be on full time.
You do.
And yeah, it could be a lot, right?
Yeah. And let's say if we're babysitting dogs, whether we're in their home or they're in our home, the likelihood is those are the dogs that cannot be boarded, let's just say, at a facility. So they need that special one-on-one care. So we're literally on 24/7 when we're with that animal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the ones that I bring to my house are typically not okay. Typically.
Yes.
Typically. So, there's some kind of either reactivity, aggression, whatever it might be. Always being on, and also you kind of, it almost, in some ways too, it kind of brings me back to like, so this is how my customer feels,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I think it's nice in a way to kind of,
It's a refresher for us to remember what they're actually going through day to day.
yeah.
And that can lead them to not compassionate burnout, because they're not necessarily taking care of an ill pet, but literally just burnout from a needy pet. A needy pet that needs, extra boundaries or extra management, or that you literally just can't trust all the time because they are an animal and they do have triggers. But yeah, so burnout is prevalent in all across animal industry.
Yeah, this is very true. They talk about burnout and compassion fatigue, so emotional demands. Dog trainers, pet sitters often work with animals exhibiting behavioral issues, which can be emotionally taxing. Client expectations.
Ooh, that is like, we could do a session all on that.
Oh, yeah.
That's intense. That's hard to manage, especially when maybe you've gotten into this business to help animals. I love animals. I'm going to be a dog trainer. I love animals. But like, those expectations then put the pressure on you. So there's not necessarily just the focus of being there for the animal, but being there to, I guess, in a sense, prove to the client in one way or the other that you can help. So that's a lot of pressure for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and at one point you have to let go of that pressure, or it will kill you.
Yeah, it's still hard,
Yeah.
even almost 20 years later. It used to be much easier. You get these complex behaviors. It's almost like people in a way, where things seemed so much simpler 10 years ago, pre-COVID, and it's like so much more is happening now with people and with, of course, the dogs.
Yeah.
And those client expectations, I'm sure personal trainers must feel the same way.
They actually do.
Because it's just unbelievable. We're trained to kind of have a little bit of a bird's eye view of what the trajectory will look like. For example, but like if you look at Michael Jordan, we all know he was like the best at one point or time. Everyone knows that he obviously probably had to practice really hard, right?
Yep.
Only a few of us know how much he actually did have to do.
Okay.
And so what I mean by that is, I feel like when we're, who we are and how good we are at what we do, we're able to really kind of pinpoint a little bit better accuracy of like how much they need to do, and that no one is ever near that amount. And so I think that's why when they have the expectation, well, I want my dog to be like Michael Jordan.
Okay. Are you willing to put in that time?
And I don't think they understand like what amount of time. So I guess, maybe Michael Jordan isn't a good Chaser. Do you remember
yes.
the dog Chaser?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes. For anybody who doesn't know who Chaser is, we'll link the video somewhere.
That's a great idea.
Beautiful.
This guy was incredible. Yeah, the dog trainer was a psychiatrist. That dog trainer, the owner, right, was like a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And this guy could not only understand 1,000+ words, right?
Yeah.
But he could
He can differentiate 1,000+ animals, 1,000 plus stuffed at guys. You need to watch the video.
He could categorize.
It's incredible.
They found out so much just through Chaser.
And Chaser could decipher by omission,
Right.
which is not necessarily something that dogs have innate in them. It's something that needs to be taught. Chaser is a miracle animal.
Yeah.
Chaser is the Michael Jordan.
Yeah, in many ways, or even like you remember that old school TV show, The Littlest Hobo?
Yes, I do.
even just that dog. I mean, let's be real. What did that dog do in every single episode? Walk, right? I mean,
Yeah.
walk. He maybe jumped on someone every once in a while,
Yeah.
had a gun or whatever. But in the end, there wasn't really like insane things happening compared to some dogs we see on TV, right?
Yeah.
But let's be real. I mean, that amount of training that
Still.
dog had to go through,
Oh, yeah.
it was daily.
Absolutely.
I don't think people get that. We have a life, we have work,
Yeah.
we have tons of things we have to do, especially as parents and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Right? Business owners,
Yeah.
etc. So people don't understand that. And so when they talk about, when the expectations come out and they're like, well, how long do you think this is going to take? I just feel like that is where a lot of the pressure comes from for a lot of special trainers and so
Yeah.
on, it's almost like they think that the dog is like robotic. And it's
Well-
like, if I press the right buttons, this is how long it's going to take, right? Like I'm gonna get it done.
Realistically, if you press the right buttons for the rest of the dog's life, you will get it done. The rest of the dog's life is the key information there. If you have managing your expectation of someone who has a reactive dog, you're not going on regular walks every day. You're going on carefully orchestrated walks to set your dog up for success. And the reality is sometimes after a long day of work, you don't have the energy to do that. And we understand that. But we're not saying that you're going to go out that night and it's going to be a great walk. It's probably not going to be a great walk. So balancing the client expectations, it's just like humans. Humans take lifelong work. You know, the whole, everybody goes through some kind of midlife crisis or whatever, and then they start to like heal their inner child or whatever. Think about this the same way for your animals. Your animals have been given X amount of training from you and you want them to succeed in life, but what if you haven't given them the right training that they need at that point, and then you need to consider alternative strategies by mixing up, bringing in your dog trainer because you've had your puppy for a year and now you're dealing with other things. Bring in your dog trainer, but understand that this is a living being that shifts with the world the way we do. And so you may have lifelong work.
That's it. Probably the most common thing I say that helps me feel relief because of the client expectation, because apparently that's one of the big things for burnout and compassion fatigue from the stats here, is I will, when they say they want XYZ and they want it to be like this and so on, I tell them, I go, well, if you quit your job and you do this full time, you might get that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I say. And again, it goes back to like the Michael Jordan theory. Michael Jordan, it was every day, all the time. It was the only thing that was happening. So if you want to be like Michael Jordan, the work ethic has to be insane.
Yep.
And
right.
so people just need to kind of understand that. That like, this isn't my full-time job. I'm not dog training every day.
Yep.
I'm not saying that it has to be like that for perfection or anything. Perfection, we're not trying to achieve that.
Perfection doesn't exist.
That's it, right? It's about consistency. And consistency, to me at least, when I'm working with my clients, is whatever they can give me. And then we figure out a plan through that. And then that's consistency, in my opinion. So I feel like ever since I've kind of felt a little bit more grounded in that sense, okay, we're not looking for Michael Jordan of dogs here. We're just trying to get by and build as we go on. And so that's kind of how I focus on it, where my pressure isn't so high. Because I feel like back in the day, I'm sure, especially when I was very young, I'm sure there was plenty of times where I was like, yeah, for sure we could do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Just do this 16 times a day.
Exactly. It's so easy, just do it exactly all
Just do
day.
it.
So it's too much. The other one that comes up is isolation.
Oh, explain me that one.
So I think I'm sure you can relate to this too in some ways. Many dog trainers, pet sitters, and so on operate independently,
Oh, yes.
leading to professional isolation and a lack of peer support.
Yeah, I could totally see how that could happen. So, over the years, WIC has become fairly large, and so we can support each other. But when it was just me dealing with all the difficult situations, yeah, it does kind of puts you in a, what am I doing? Or is this okay? Is this normal to feel? Am I stressed out? But now I'm not a psychologist, but I actually do reach out to my staff who I know are going through tough situations, tough contracts, tough cats, or if a cat needed to be put down. These are things that are inevitable in our business, but that can really, really hurt people because it's so emotionally taxing. Yeah, so I make sure to kind of keep an eye on everybody, because if they can't talk to me, who are they going to talk to about it?
Well, that's amazing. That's incredible for that support, right? Your staff is lucky to have you.
Oh, thanks. But it didn't come from nowhere. It came from me literally having to go through it myself and dealing with business burnout, compassion fatigue, dealing with losing a few of my animals at home all in a quick period where it can literally take you down. So you need to kind of, support your fellow business person in the animal care industry and just kind of understand, we're not just dealing with numbers. We're not just dealing with how to help your dog in a problem behavior. We're dealing with we're absorbing the emotions from the animals. And we're also absorbing the emotions from the humans.
And the energy.
And the energy. That's it. If you're an empath, or if you're somebody who deals with just absorbing some emotions and you're not a full empath, then it can be very draining at the end of the day.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I definitely feel like I suffered through that quite a bit. I would say only the later years I had staff, as you know, even as a business owner, right, that I feel like we're supposed to always have the answers for everyone, right? This might sound silly, but I find that even, we talked about client expectations before. Now I know we're talking about isolation, but staff expectations. I've had staff where they were already in the dog training world, and they reached out and they were like, Josh, I want to work with you. I hear they put me on such a pedestal.
Oh, okay.
And then, like, I'm not in my eyes, I'm just Josh.
Yeah.
And so I find that they realize, well, Josh isn't like that special. But and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just a normal person. I have flaws, I have strengths, I'm like anyone else.
But the pressure is on from
Exactly.
where they put you.
Exactly. And so I feel like that plays a big role. And so when I went from being isolated, I almost yearned for staff. I almost needed it. And in fact, I even remember back when, where I was kind of torn between finding a part-time job where I could be around people again, peers, as opposed to running a business, right?
Yes.
So it's weird. It's weird how that kind of but for sure I definitely felt impacts.
Yeah. And to touch on that point of having the peer support, my husband, Dan, who's our head trainer at WIC, we work together and we work on, the same cases for cooperative care. And sometimes we'll walk the same dogs, and we'll come home and we'll come home at 6 p.m. or whatever, feed our animals, put our stuff in the oven to get ready. By that time, it's 7 o'clock, and then we start talking about our day. And our day could have 100 highs, but it could also have 100 lows. And so we need that back and forth between the two of us to kind of regulate what's gone on during the day, regulate our nervous system, let go of the feelings, but also I absorb a lot of what he's talking about. And I feel it at the level of the client, and I feel it at the level of the case that we're dealing with. And then it sits within me until my next session with that dog. And I'll tell you, the last couple of years, when we would have negative situations in a sense of what we're working on is not necessarily sticking with a certain dog because of either lack of consistency issues or just other factors in the lifestyle of the dog, kind of starts to create a bit of imposter syndrome in you because you think, well, I'm not good enough to help this dog. I'm not good enough to get through to the client, to really make them understand what the dog is going through and how we can see a pathway out of it. And so that imposter syndrome knocks you down hard.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Have you ever gone through anything like that?
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Especially the earlier years. Anytime you learn something new and then you're applying it, there's going to be hurdles. And the hurdles, you have to go through it so many times before you understand that that's just part of it. And before you know that, you go into this state of mind of like imposter syndrome. You'll come home and you'll sit there and you'll be like, man, I'm not good enough. Like I'm
not good enough.
I've done this, I've done that. I did everything from the booklet that all the training, all the hours, everything I did, and somehow like I'm still not
where I want to be.
Exactly. And I think that imposter syndrome exists in many different places, professions, but obviously I'm a little biased, but I definitely think it really applies to us. Because at the end of the day, we are really working on a behavior. I'm sure maybe, again, I'm obviously not a psychologist, but I'm sure maybe even psychologists could relate to that in some ways. Maybe I'm a marriage counselor and I can't help these two, or I've tried and we've had a certain amount of sessions and I'm still not where I want to be with this couple or whatever. So I'm sure there's many different professions that kind of have that. But when we can't physically speak to the dog, we have to use our knowledge to speak to the dog, which is, I think, involves a lot of brain power.
It does.
To get to that. So have I had it? Absolutely. I think I still might have little peak like symptoms every once in a while.
I think it's natural.
Yeah.
And I think actually, not to make light of it, but if you're still having moments like that, then you don't think you know everything, which is actually kind of healthy in our industry because we need to keep learning.
Absolutely. Doctors keep learning. Veterinarians keep learning. Most professions are constantly evolving, and we need to evolve.
Except for accounting. Guys, I came from a background in accounting. It's been like that for years. Nothing needed to change. And then you go and work with these sentient beings that literally have different personality from one to the next, and you need to ad hoc your plan on the spot. It's very challenging. It's a different challenge. Circling back to veterinarians, it's challenging for them on the day-to-day. There's always something different, and they're always kind of met with I'm not saying everybody meets them with like defiance or like questioning or whatever, but the reality is there's just only so much owners can do and only so much the vet can do, and if they can't meet on a middle ground, somebody's disappointed. Somebody's letting someone down. That hurts. In the end, it hurts.
For sure. For sure. Oh, that was really good. I think it's something that isn't talked about enough. I think even just us opening up a little bit about that too, I think a lot of probably dog trainers, pet sitters, anyone in the pet grooming.
Grooming is intense, actually.
Well, yeah,
the burnout in grooming,
in
traditional grooming, the burnout, I don't know the rates, I don't know the statistics because I've not been involved, but the physicality and the fight or pushback that you get from the animal I'm sure it doesn't make you feel good. Even if the traditional groomers are like, yeah, that's the way it is. You just hold them a little harder, or like somebody hold while I do this because whatever. That doesn't make you feel good inside. Like I had to hold them, I had to restrain them, whether or not you're conscious about that or not. There's something in there that probably you wouldn't like to like pin down a 3-year-old to have their dentistry done, you know? Like there's dentists that focus specifically on positive reinforcement dentistry for little kids. They want to do right by them, by the kids, and by them too. They want to feel good about what they're doing. So, you know, it's stressful.
It is. That, you know, they also mention in that same message that the lack of mental health support. So they say that unlike other professions, dog training, pet sitters, groomers may not have easy access to mental health resources tailored to their unique challenges. So it's very wishy-washy kind of thing, you know. And then they also talk about the stigma. And I can see this with maybe other professions as well, but like discussing mental health in general is stigmatized, preventing trainers from seeking help.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, we deal with dogs, but using human psychology. Okay. So you think that we would be able to regulate our own emotions because we're dealing with psychology, trying to regulate animal emotions. It doesn't necessarily translate like that. Like that's the job. And then we come home and have all of our own emotions. We can't necessarily talk ourselves through what we're going through. Sometimes you do need to reach out for therapy or have a psychologist or, you know, group support. However, people who work for themselves generally, I'm going to say generally, don't have health insurance the way that somebody working for a corporation does. So that therapy is coming out of your pocket, out of the pocket that, let's just say, dog trainers are not paid the way CEOs are paid. Like, it's a different category altogether. So there could be the mental struggle. There could also be the financial struggle that you can't access those tools.
I mean, it takes a lot of time.
It does.
It takes a lot of time to get to a place where you're like, you can just get whatever you want kind of thing, you know, in that sense. One thing I want, maybe we'll end on this, okay? Is I'm probably going to get judged for this.
Uh-oh.
But I want your opinion before I answer.
Great. So I can get judged first.
I'm associated to quite a few rescues.
Okay.
And I know that in the sense of mental health, they also go through burnout.
Yes.
Right? But one thing that I'm a little disappointed with is, for example, Facebook, okay? I find that a lot of people, especially from animal shelters, they're very judgy when people, for whatever reason, cannot keep their dog. And I understand the whole idea of, you know, you adopt or a dog is forever and so on. And I get that. I understand that. If it was a child, right? What is your, you know, thought process on that in the sense, or you know what, actually, because I feel like maybe that's too much pressure. Before I'll tell you how I feel. I feel like people need to calm down a little bit.
Okay.
That's just personally me. I had a situation. Personally, where I couldn't keep a dog.
Okay.
And as a dog trainer and someone who is pretty known, this was a hard pill to swallow for me. This was very, very difficult.
Okay.
And I mean, when it comes to that thought process, the thought of like what people are going to think of me, it's difficult.
Scary.
It's scary, right? Because you get attacked. I see some of these people get attacked. I feel like they have to have a little bit more compassion. Yes, fine. I get it. It's a lifelong commitment. But you have people out there who, oh boy, I'm getting too personal now.
I know.
But you have people out there who are ready to give up on themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and you are there on Facebook saying, I want to find this dog a great home because I can't handle myself right now. who knows what they mean by that, if you know what I mean, since we're on mental health, right?
Yeah.
And people are like, you're the most terrible person in the world, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, it's hard to know what's going on in everybody's world. There can be cases like, I just had a baby and the baby's severely allergic. I need to rehome my cat. And people are like, oh my God, just because, the cat's 16, it's not going to do well in other places. That may be the reality. And I don't have children, so I can't actually compare this into my real life situation. But I think that probably something that you've birthed is your priority in life. You've got kids, they're literally made from you.
Yeah.
There's a different attachment. And for me, my animals are my kids. So I can't necessarily have the viewpoint on it. But at the same time, there's a reason behind everything, usually. And people will not necessarily tell you the reason, but try not to judge immediately. You can have your inner feelings, but your inner feelings is your viewpoint in life at your particular moment. If you've gone through a really crappy, I was going to swear, but I don't know how Josh feels about that on his podcast.
Swear away.
If you're going through a really shitty time in life and you cannot feed yourself and you cannot then take care of your animal because you can't even get yourself out of bed, then maybe you're actually looking out for their best interests. There's crappy people out there that rehome animals because they've adopted them and now they're peeing in places and they don't want them anymore. Not saying there's not the crappy cases. And in those cases, everyone's going to shit on you on Facebook because that's just what that community does. So those aside, because those are not the greatest cases, and yes, people can still help them, but there are reasons behind some of these things. And to touch base a little bit about what you were saying about how you personally had an issue where you could not keep a dog, so did me and my husband. And it was not a good time. It's for us then. It's still not good memories when we talk about it. We try to talk about it in a different light and celebrate the years that we had with that dog. But it ended hard for us. And that's something we'll take with us kind of forever. So, but if someone goes through a hard situation where they see that there's reasons behind just the actual physical animal, you start to judge less. And you start to try to just literally understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's important. That will help you let go of the emotional burden, is if you try to understand from the standing point of that person.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because I find that that's why I'm as understanding as I am, because of the situations that I've gone through. I will have people absolutely devastated, crying on my shoulder. And yes, it's because of all the emotions, but one of the big ones is that they are afraid of what even I might think or what other people think.
Yep.
And I think that even though it should never be taken lightly, I think if you're already thinking about that, the last thing you need is to feel judged about it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I know we have a lot of people that listen to the podcast, so I'm sure I'm going to get a little bit of flack for what I just spoke about.
That's okay.
But you know what? I think it's something that I'm willing to say, because hopefully maybe one person out there who is maybe a little judgy on those type of things, maybe they'll have a little bit more compassion and understand that there's a lot of stuff going on in people's heads.
And lives.
Yeah. Exactly. And people need to just, cut some slack.
Yeah. Don't take everything so personally. Try to, we say this, we hope somebody will be a little bit less judgy. The reality is, I think that you start to judge less as you go through the hard times. So that's where maybe judging is maybe an indicator of maybe you haven't gone through it yourself. Maybe you haven't dealt with this hard thing, and so you're judging someone for the fact that they have to now, and that they're literally just reaching out for help. So, but again, there's other sides to this story, right? There's the shitty people, but there's the people that it's really happening to. And so all this lashing out from, what do they call, like when you're behind your keyboard and you can be all like sassy, but like...
Oh, like a keyboard warrior?
Yeah. Like when you're dealing with crap like that, it just makes stuff worse, right? So if you can't... It goes back to what our parents said. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah, that went out the door with social media.
Oh, Christ.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree though.
Yeah.
Well, this was really good.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
It's a good one and a hard one. And I think actually probably one we'll end up touching more on as the time goes.
Yeah.
Because you always need support. And we're there.
Absolutely. And so considering, we're going to end it on that, but maybe I'm going to throw one other thing out there. You and I. Us. We are creating something very special.
We are.
So we are creating Petpreneur University.
Yes.
This is going to be pet business coaching / training school.
A one-stop shop to learn it all.
One-stop shop to learn it all. That's right. What is going to be one of our first things on one of our courses that we're doing?
So literally, it's the first thing written on my page of additional modules and topics to add to our syllabus is how to avoid burnout and how to avoid absorbing emotions from your clients.
Amazing. I mean, even just that is gold.
It is. It's something that's truly needed and not given to the individual who is working for themselves in the business.
So anyone who's listening, we are going to put some links below. If you are even interested in doing anything pet business related, we have a waiting list. We are absolutely not prepared. We are working very, very Michael Jordan-esque.
We are.
In the sense of how often and how much we're doing, but we are not ready. But we do have a waiting list. What we would love is that if any of you join this waiting list and you are wanting to get into some form of, whether it's dog training, pet sitting, etc., if you join this waiting list, we will give you a special little surprise.
Ooh, I like
for coming into this waiting list with us and bearing with us while we get all our T's crossed and dot all our I's. So if you are interested and you want to learn from what I think some of the best, Sam and I, we've been doing this for quite some time. I think we have so much to give.
We do.
And for a price.
Listen, everybody's got to make it in the world, right? Like we've got to get somewhere.
But I mean, I can't count how many times, and I'm sure you can't either, how many times we've given stuff because we want to.
Yeah.
And now we're just kind of saying like, hey, this can be bigger. This
could be bigger than us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and we can help along the way.
Exactly.
Learn from our experiences, from our mistakes, from our triumphs, from our leadership. Learn from us. If we can give you some steps that you don't have to figure out yourself, then it's a win for you.
Oh man, I mean, if I could go back in time.
Oh my God.
I wouldn't change anything because there's things that I learned that I had to learn the hard way, but being able to kind of guide someone and be like, look, instead of going down this path, this is the 10-year path, you can go down this path, which is like maybe 2-3 years, you know?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, to have that will be huge.
Yeah. And if anybody is struggling with anything mental health related in your pet industry business right now, just reach out. A couple of sentences from us might be all it takes to kind of turn something around.
I love that. Please reach out. That would be wonderful. We want to help everyone and anyone. Having said that, like we were saying, we are going to have a link below to
Chaser.
To
Chaser.
To Chaser. We're going to have a link down below to
Petpreneur University.
Petpreneur University, PetU. I just wanted to mention that it doesn't have to be someone who is just getting into the pet industry. It could be someone who already has a business, who is looking to level up or looking for some extra help. We will be doing many things with PetU, from just mini courses to the big shebang.
Yep.
Join this waiting list. We will also, once you do join the waiting list, we will give you an idea of what that little surprise is going to be.
Yes.
Very tempting, isn't it? So please join, okay? Join our waiting list. All right, everyone, thank you so much. I'm Josh.
I'm Sam. Have a great day.
Have a great day.